This video is a tribute to Bob Knipe, who loved Batavia and the Genesee community and put that love into action through committed involvement in many organizations. The speakers represent several of those organizations where Bob devoted his time. They are amateurs at making videos, but you can see the genuine and heartfelt admiration and love for Bob's efforts to make our community a better place.
I'm humbled and honored to provide the Rotary Club of Batavia's portion of this tribute to our beloved Bob Knipe. A second-generation Rotarian and 30-year member of Rotary International, Bob was our club's immediate past president, only stepping back from the podium in June of 2020 at the end of his term. My name is Lori Maston. I was president in the year leading up to Bob's term. Bob facilitated Zoom meetings when the pandemic hit and kept the club not only afloat, but connected. Also notable in his term was the facilitation of a matching District 7090 grant totaling $6,000 for installation of signage, bike racks, kiosks, and benches for the Ellicott Trail project. Looking back on photos of Bob, one sees that he was involved in almost each and every Rotary Service Club project. Grilling sausages at the fly-in breakfasts, Rotary Park decorating and cleanup, Brewfest, the nursing home Christmas party, Rotary team at the United Way annual Day of Caring. The list goes on and on. Bob was especially passionate about the Rotary shows, front stage, backstage, pit. He also is very passionate about youth exchange, and his involvement spanned decades. Not one to blow his own horn, he loved that terrible pun. Bob lived a life built on Rotary's motto, service above self. So take a walk on the Ellicott Trail. Listen very carefully. And rest assured, there's no doubt he's sitting in first chair of that horn section and the orchestra high above. Thank you, Bob.
So hello guys, Bob was the first American that I trust. I was blessed to have really good host families during my exchange year, but I knew if I had any kind of problems, Bob would help me and have my back. He has his huge figure, really tall guy, and I'm really small, so I felt really safe around him. And we share a lot of moments together, and he was kind enough to pay attention about stuff that I like. So I always remember how he lent me his acoustic guitar. I think it was his son's acoustic guitar, and somehow he figured out I wanted to buy my first guitar, electrical guitar. So we went to Buffalo, to Guitar Center or something, or House of Blues, and I bought my first electrical guitar. So I have that memory so good in my mind, and I remember him with his girlfriend going with me. We went to a Mexican place after that. It was really awesome. So I share a lot of good memories around my exchange years because of Bob. And he is a really good man. And he was kind of a role model for me, alongside with Greg and Matthew, my two host parents.
Hi, I'm Susanna Reyes-Friedman, and I just wanted to say that I really had such a pleasure to know Mr. Knipe from two organizations, actually. I grew up in the First Presbyterian Church in Batavia before I moved out here to California, and it was always so nice to go back home and go to church on Sundays and see many people, but especially Mr. Knipe there, ready to give us a hug and ask us about our lives and just make us feel really at home whenever we were there. I was also lucky enough to know Mr. Knipe through Rotary because I was an exchange student from the Batavia Rotary Club to Belgium in the year 2006 to 2007. And not only was Mr. Knipe one of the people who encouraged me the most to go on exchange, but also when I came back home, welcomed me back and asked me all about my experiences. And I know that all the exchange students who knew him had such a great experience in the club with Mr. Knipe. And the same thing happened when I showed my husband a photo of Mr. Knipe. Now, my husband David never lived in Batavia, but when we would go back, he said, "Oh yeah, I remember him. He was always so friendly and greeted us so nicely." And I think that just speaks volumes to Mr. Knipe's character, that everyone remembers him so quickly in such a positive way. I think we were all very, very blessed to have known him and to have learned from him. And I'm confident that he is now looking down on all of you, his family and loved ones, with a smile and surely with a joke from up in heaven. He will be greatly missed and very fondly remembered.
This is Batavia First Presbyterian Church's tribute to Bob Knipe. Bob was a beloved member of our church family for just shy of 30 years. He was instrumental in the life of our church in so many ways. It would be impossible to talk about all of them in this short video piece. First of all, Bob loved his church family very much. He would want to know how a person was doing and really mean it, not just a passing comment. For example, he would ask questions to get someone talking. He would reaffirm how much he and the church family cared for someone that was ill. Also, he was comfortable in going up to someone he didn't even know. He would put them at ease in a way that the person felt like they'd known Bob for a long time. That was Bob, and explains how he is and always was loved by his church family. Truly, he was someone who radiated the love of God to all whose paths he crossed.
As a member of the personnel team at church, Bob radiated that same caring personality when dealing with any issues that came up. He spent countless hours with the team to help develop a sexual misconduct policy and a child protection policy. His gentle nature, calming personality, and sense of humor were valuable traits in handling conflict resolution within the church. Bob served as an elder, often helped out with youth ministry, was always willing to help with any service projects in the church, and most recently helped sand and paint the entryway into the sanctuary from the chapel. Bob was always very willing to volunteer to transport church members who needed a ride for doctor appointments, and since his retirement, Bob was a volunteer driver with the Disabled American Veterans for more than 5 years, transporting vets to appointments in Batavia and Buffalo. But one thing the church is most grateful to Bob for is his persuasive personality to recruit Pastor Rula when he was on the pastor nominating committee. With Bob's son Tom in the Portland, Oregon area and Rula in Bend, Oregon, Bob was able to visit with Rula in person rather than over the phone, and his warm personality on behalf of our church resulted in Rula moving 2,500 miles to Batavia to become our pastor. Bob went out of his way to sacrifice time with his own family to consider the needs of his church family. His presence was always that of friendship, compassion, and kindness, and he gave of himself so generously for the sake of love.
Batavia First Presbyterian prays, with thanks, that we are fortunate to know and love Bob Knipe, and we also pray for those loved ones he left behind. Amen.
I've been asked to speak about Bob Knipe, the singer. The Ross family met the Knipe family soon after they moved to Batavia and began attending the First Presbyterian Church, where we were also members. Our daughter Karen and Bob's son Tom were both French horn players, as was Bob, so we soon got to know them all better between church and school activities. Bob joined the church choir, and he was a good baritone, adding a strong voice to the choir. Our choir rehearsals were informal, and good times always ensued. So we got to know Bob and his sense of humor very well. He was a strong and faithful presence in that choir for many years. I was singing in the a cappella group Collage, which was based in Wyoming County, and after we performed with the Genesee Symphony at a December holiday concert, Bob expressed an interest in joining us. So he became a member, and his baritone voice was a needed supplement and improved the overall balance of our sound. He was a committed member, and of course, Bob's sense of humor added to the enjoyment of our rehearsals. We performed all over Western New York, and of course, there were many Rotary shows put on by the Batavia Rotary Club. The friendships formed during preparation and performances of those shows is something I still miss, and Bob was a big part of many of them. And we have to admit it, that Bob was a ham. He loved to create a character, and he dove into those performances. He had a knack for developing accents to carry off his role. I'm not sure exactly how many shows we did together, but they are times that I will always remember. I came to know and appreciate a man who was committed to whatever endeavor he took on. A man who wanted to be active and deeply involved in his community. And Bob was all of those things and more. I certainly will miss him.
Hello, my name is Philip Radico, and I am the director of the Genesee Valley Wind Ensemble. Today I was asked to share some memories about Bob's involvement with our group from over the past 6 years. And as I was preparing my remarks, I found it very difficult to think of Bob as only being part of one group, because Bob was so connected with our arts community. I met Bob about 20 years ago in Batavia Concert Band. I got the classic handshake. Hello, my name is Bob Knipe. I'm glad that you're here. From that point, I would attend a Genesee Symphony Orchestra concert, and I'd see him playing his French horn there. I would leave the Tonawanda Valley Federal Credit Union in the springtime, and I would see him outside selling hanging potted plants. One time, as I was walking out, Bob said to me, "You know, this hanging plant would look really nice at your new house, Phil." I couldn't disagree, and I couldn't say I didn't have any money. I ended up buying that hanging plant and enjoying it for the rest of that summer. He was also involved in Go Art and found every opportunity of somehow integrating where he had worked for his career at GCC into the fabric of our community, somehow incorporating our group through rehearsals, through sponsorship, and an interconnectedness, somehow always bringing people together in our community. To not have Bob there is a loss for our community, but we also have to remember just that deep impact. I want to thank his wife Linda and his family for their support of Bob's involvedness with everything, and his investment of time, and the way in which he shares his passion for music with our community. Bob, you're going to be missed. We'll miss you, and we thank you so much for your contributions to all of our groups and to all of our lives.
Although I worked with Bob at Genesee Community College, I feel like I didn't really get to know him until we co-hosted a radio show called Do You Remember These? It ran on WBTA, sponsored by Office for the Aging, and part of the radio show involved doing interviewing. So we would interview staff from Office for the Aging about services, but we'd also have community members in to talk about their areas of expertise and their interests. And some of them would come in so nervous, and one of the skills Bob had was that he could set anybody at ease almost immediately. He would start talking to them and joking with them, and soon they would forget the microphones are even there, and they would just be so at ease. The part of the show, though, that I liked the most was when Bob and I just got to talk. We would reminisce about the past. We'd talk about topics. We would talk about school, maybe family trips we took, favorite music, favorite food, childhood toys, and we didn't always agree, and yet I think that made it more fun for our listeners. We didn't just talk about the past, though. We talked about the present, and one thing very apparent when talking to Bob was how much he valued his family, how much he loved them. I remember him telling me about planting fruit trees, and he said that even though he thought he might not see them bear fruit, he knew they'd be there for his grandkids for years to come.
Hello, my name is Jason Smith. I'd like to say hello to Linda and Bob's family, and I am representing the Batavia Concert Band, of which Bob was a proud member. I have on our concert band shirt that Bob wore every summer in the park. I think Bob joined the band in 1991. That's about when I first joined the band. So Bob and I have had a long history of playing music with the concert band in Centennial Park. Right after Bob joined the band, a few years after, I believe he became the business manager. He took over for longtime musician Lyle Mark, a legend in his own right. Bob became the business manager in the mid-90s and served in that role for, I'm going to say, for at least 15 or more years. In addition to being a French horn player in the band, as I said, Bob was the business manager. And in that role, Bob was responsible for making sure the band had sufficient funds to have a season. However, what Bob was most known for by our band members and myself was his extreme dedication to having the band play throughout the area. We normally would play every Wednesday night in Centennial Park, but Bob loved to have the band play all over the place. We would play in Leroy, at the Oaxaca Festival, we would play at the VA. One summer we played at the Genesee County Fair. Bob loved this band. We loved having Bob be in the band. Right after Bob stopped being our general manager, he actually stayed on the board and served as player at large and offered some more insight to the band, to the band leadership. So to Linda and his sons and his family, we here at the concert band extend our deepest sympathies. We hope Bob has found peace. We hope you have found peace. And we know every summer Bob will be looking down on the concert band, playing his French horn, making sure that we have funds available, and the band is still an active part of our area. Thank you, and I hope you find peace.
Hi, I'm Samantha Basile. I'm one of the librarians here at Richmond Memorial Library, and I'm very honored to be sharing with all of you. The first time I met Bob was when he came into the library to donate a beautiful wooden roll-top desk that would be my workstation for my first year or so working here. He came in a few days later with an enormous ring of keys, hoping that one of them would fit the lock. We never did find the right key, but I was immediately struck by Bob for his good humor, his talent for storytelling, and his passion for our community. I am going to share some remarks from my predecessor, Leslie DeLuz, who worked with Bob for many years. Richmond Memorial Library has presented the Book Sandwiched In program for decades. It's one of those events that relies heavily on volunteers to serve as speakers and to encourage community people to be the speakers. Bob Knipe was a stellar volunteer as he both presented talks and was so involved in the community that he had an unusually wide circle of friends, colleagues, and acquaintances to invite to the program. Although Bob was not from Batavia, he was of Batavia, involving himself in the community in many, many ways. His natural curiosity, his outgoing nature, his wide-ranging interests, and his love of books made him a special friend of the library, and we appreciate all that he did over the years to support and promote the library out in the community. I'll add to Leslie's remarks to say that I was a bit nervous to be taking over the Book Sandwiched In program when I started. It has a long tenure. Back into the 80s, Bob actually presented, I think, the first time in 1992. He was on the committee for several years. It's got a long-standing record of success, as well as a committee that I inherited with it. But I didn't need to worry. In our first meeting, I discovered what a wonderful group it was. In particular, Bob set me at ease. He came prepared with suggestions, which I loved, and he also respected my leadership and my ideas. The amount of validation that gave me as a new librarian was absolutely priceless. I also found out quickly that no one seemed able to say no when Bob asked them to speak for the program. So that was worth its weight in gold. It was clear that he was respected simply by virtue of the person that he was, not to mention the enormous good he's done for our community. I am honored and grateful for the few years I was able to work with him.
I'm Tammy Hathaway from the United Way of Genesee County, and Bob and I had plenty of transactions together over the years. We sat on the Planning and Development Committee, the City of Batavia, and Bob was always active with the United Way through the GSO at our Summer Serenade and with our Day of Caring. One of my favorite memories between Bob and I is I was leaving at the Planning and Development Committee meeting in December, and he asked me what I was doing for the holidays. I told him I was going out to Oregon to visit my son. And he said, "Oh, whereabouts in Oregon?" And I said, "Grants Pass." Bob dead stopped, looked at me with great big eyes, and says, "Grants Pass, that's where I lived before I came to Batavia. You and I are probably the only people in this whole county who know where Grants Pass is." And I thought that was so neat that something so small, we just had that great connection together. And I thoroughly enjoyed Bob with all of our Go Art transactions together. Gregory trying to convince him to redo the Rotary calendar. That was a very interesting meeting, and Bob wasn't going for it. So, but Bob will be missed. We thoroughly enjoyed having him in our life and in our community, and we thank him for all that he did.
Hi, I'm Roxy Choate, Personnel Manager and GSO Board Co-President. I have known Bob through volunteering and serving our Genesee Symphony Orchestra for some 15 years. Bob was on the board when I arrived there and helped to break me into all the wonders of promoting music through an orchestra. Bob is certainly a force for the arts. He is a true community servant. He wore many hats with our GSO. Bob was our operations manager, and he arranged for venues for our concerts. And for rehearsals and concerts, he would arrange the musicians' chairs and make any physical arrangements on stage to support the conductor's wishes. Bob has been a past president of the GSO board. He has played his favorite horn in the GSO since 1991. Bob was also our GSO newsletter editor. The newsletter was mailed to our dedicated concert patrons previous to each GSO concert. Bob was also a liaison for Go Art and the GSO, and he was in charge of writing any of the grants that we needed to have to keep our orchestra moving forward. Bob was always showing his enthusiasm for music. He quoted, "Without music, life is kind of a cruel joke. I believe that there is music in the atmosphere, the sciences, the flow of electricity, the beat of the heart. Music is fundamental to everything." Bob is being a force for the arts and has always worked to make GSO a vibrant part of the cultural growth of our GLOW region. His support in so many ways has been a force for the orchestra to move forward. Our orchestra will move forward with our next season as being a 75th anniversary celebration, and Bob's spirit will always be with us for the years to come.
Hi, Marjorie Fulmer here. Bob Knipe was a true proponent of the arts in Genesee County for many, many years. I have been a member of the orchestra for 35 years, and Bob was part of the orchestra for almost that long, and maybe even the same amount of time. We were also co-presidents of the orchestra board, and I can always remember Bob having sometimes rather grandiose ideas of places and things the orchestra should do, and sometimes we had to rein him in a little bit, but his boundless enthusiasm, energy was always apparent, and he clearly loved the orchestra. He was one of the biggest cheerleaders for the orchestra and volunteered in numerous capacities, both mentally and physically. He showed unbelievable energy. He was consistently the one who schlepped music stands to all our rehearsals, to our concert venues. Sometimes in the middle of the winter, there you'd see Bob coming in carrying another load of music stands. While many of the orchestra members are either music teachers or have some kind of professional background related to music, Bob did not. So many times he told me one of the great goals of a community orchestra should be inclusiveness, and he totally appreciated that the GSO included him. The arts in Genesee County and its surrounding area have much to thank Bob Knipe for. Not only was he active in the GSO, but he was a leader in Go Art. He promoted their activities as fiercely as he did the orchestra. Bob's legacy will live on and not be forgotten in Genesee County, and we all appreciate everything he did.
Hi, I'm Barb Meyer, and I sat next to Bob in the French horn section of the Genesee Symphony Orchestra for about 30 years. Over the years, we have played beautiful music, shared a lot of laughs and jokes in the horn section, as well as getting in trouble with conductors, such as, conductor, horns. Could you play a little less aggressively on that entrance? Us. But after counting 48 plus 24 and another 15 measures of rest, we had to make an entrance. Horns, could you please play a little more in tune? Who? Us? Horns, you missed your entrance. Please stop talking and pay attention. Oh, sorry. We were discussing who was playing which part. We routinely change parts around to give each other a chance to play something more challenging or rest the embouchures of the first and second horns, especially on high and demanding parts. Horns, could you please play from the parking lot? Yeah, right. Oh, really? You were serious? I also know that Bob's Con 8D nickel-silver French horn was manufactured in Elkhart, Indiana in 1969, the same year and model as mine. The serial numbers are only a few digits different. What are the odds of my buying a horn in New York City in 1973 and Bob buying one from a guy in Rochester, and both of them being played in the same orchestra in Western New York? Divine intervention? We only got them mixed up once. After that, Bob put red and white caution tape on the edge of his case. Bob wore many hats as operations manager, president, and many other roles for the GSO. His love of pranks on the conductors also involved hats. It was not unusual for the conductor to turn around after speaking to the audience about the next piece, only to see the horn section decked out with something on their heads. For our winter cruise, playing music from around the world, we wore sailors' hats with French horn buttons. Peter and the Wolf involved furry gray ears. Pirates of the Caribbean, arr, saw bandanas. And in Star Wars, the horn section played the Yoda theme, along with green ears. But Bob's all-time favorite was his big bag of reindeer antlers and Santa hats for the annual holiday concert. Be at peace, my friend. I will miss your sense of humor, dedication, selflessness, and love of music. It is our loss and heaven's gain.
To Linda, Tom, Andy, to Bob's entire family, to all of his friends, from all of us here at GCC, we extend our deepest sympathy on his passing. My name is Tim Tomczak. I've been working here at GCC since 1987, which means that for the majority of his career here, I had the privilege of working with Bob on a number of different projects. Can't tell you how difficult it's been to distill 23 years of work into just a few minutes, but I'm hoping to share some of the major highlights with you. The one thing Bob is best known for is getting GCC into the era of what we now call distance learning. Back in 1990, when he came here, that took the form of correspondence courses, where materials were mailed out to students through the postal service. It also took the form of telecourses, where instructors were recorded teaching their classes, and those recordings were played on cable TV. Today, distance learning looks a little different. When we say online learning, we talk about Blackboard. Now we talk about Zoom. And it is so true that our ability to transition to completely remote learning, completely online learning back last year in March due to COVID wouldn't have been made possible without the foundations that Bob put in place when he was here. In addition, during his tenure here at GCC, he oversaw some major transformations in the library. he certainly brought the library into the 21st century. And I think what's also remarkable about Bob is he truly put community into our community college. He actually brought community groups into the college. A couple of great examples of that: local high school students came onto campus for Scholastic Bowl. He also made arrangements for the Genesee Symphony Orchestra to play here. The other remarkable thing about Bob is his character. And certainly when I mentioned to a lot of people that we were working on this project, they reached out and shared lots of stories about what a great person he was to work with. One of those people is Judy Sikora, a librarian who retired. She sent me a recording that I'd like to share with you, where she reflects on Bob's character.
Bob was my best boss ever. He knew how to convey confidence in you, not micromanage, yet be there when you needed him, all with a sense of humor. Often corny, he was one of a kind, and I'll miss him.
So in the short amount of time that I've had, I certainly couldn't do justice to Bob's contributions to GCC. Please just know that we missed him when he retired. We're going to miss him even more now without having the ability to see him out in the community and see him at the market, to see him after concerts. Again, our deepest sympathies to you on his loss.